Hello everybody, thank you so much for coming along to our Digital Solutions for 70-2010 presentation. It's wonderful to see such a full house here today. My name is Eleni Iatridis. I'm Chief Learning Officer for Assima. We're a software company and we provide technology that assists companies who are undergoing business change and systems implementations to get their most out of their new systems and the most out of their end user performance. I look after a team, a learning team, called the Academy Learning Team, and we design training and performance solutions both to skill our in-house consultants in the use of our technology, but also our external customers as well. So just to get a feel for everybody here today, everybody's obviously got an interest in learning and performance solutions today. Can I just ask for a show of hands where you're coming from and who do you serve? Do you yourselves serve internal customers or do you face external customers? So hands up here who serves internal customers. Okay, quite a lot, the majority I'd say. And the external customers? Okay, a little bit less fewer. Okay, brilliant, thank you so much. So digital, it's all the rage. What is the virtue of this digital? What virtues does digital bring? Can I ask for some feedback there? What does digital bring? What virtues? Why do we have digital? Any thoughts? Okay, any offerings on the digital? Why do we go digital? What's it meant to bring to us? Sorry, what was that? Broader access, yes, reaching further. Anything else? Sorry, I can't hear. Sorry, what was that? 360 learning, yes? Is that what you said? Yes? What about things like speed, getting there faster? What about things like replicability, ensuring that our content is always the same? Homogeneity, things like that. These are the kind of perhaps driving forces behind the digital. So what I want to look at in this presentation today, first of all, Towards Maturity. Can I have a show of hands if you're aware of the Towards Maturity organization and the benchmark surveys that it does annually for the last 13 years? You all have interest and checked these out in the past. Can I have a show of hands? Brilliant. So have some of you contributed to these benchmark surveys? Raise your hands if you contributed. Okay, a few of us here. Well, this particular report that came out just at the beginning of this year for last year, what really stood out for me when I was reading it, and indeed I contributed to the survey as well, was this particular quote here, that apparently 90% of us want to respond faster to the speed of the business. But apparently, only 20% of us are actually achieving it, are achieving our goals. I'd like to get some input from you on where you think you sit within that. I've got some green and red cards on your chairs. Hold up your green and red cards for me. So can I ask, brilliant, everyone's found their cards. If you don't have a card, just raise your hands. So can I ask, would you say, if you're in the 80% who aren't achieving it, perhaps, or somewhere close to achieving it, can you raise your red cards? If you're in the 80% who aren't achieving it, can I have your green cards, please? Okay, everyone's confused with the card system. Okay, so who's achieving it? Can I have a view of who thinks that they're achieving the speed of change and responding well to that? Can I have a show of hands? Show of hands? Is that no one? Very few? Okay, well this particular quote touched me because with the point of digital and the speed, we should be able to be responding faster to the speed of change. What I've listed here is some core challenges as learning professionals that we face. In my lifetime, 20 years I've been in this industry, when I design learning and performance solutions, these are the kind of things that kind of trouble me. Am I responsive to change? Am I getting the right content to my users? Is it relevant content? My users are widely dispersed, different profiles. Do we have enough time, resource, and money to deliver the best solution that we can? And ultimately, the final point, are we measuring impact? And not only that, but are we measuring impact in such a way that we can report back to the business and demonstrate the value to the business? So these are the core challenges that sort of trouble me when I design learning and performance solutions.
So is digital the answer? How's it been for you? Has digital solved some of the issues for you? Can I have you raise your green cards if it's solving some of those core challenges for you? Or perhaps a red card if you think maybe it's solving some of them, sorry, but also it's presenting new challenges. So green card for solving, red card for, can you hear me?
Hello? Is that better? Whew. Sorry about that. Okay, so where was I? 6, is it solving the challenges for you? I had some green cards up there, if I may. Solving the challenges? Yeah? A few of you? Brilliant. And those of you who are thinking perhaps it creates also new challenges that we have to look at. Okay. So that's interesting you say that, because we talk about digital transformation. Now, what is a digital transformation? For us, it's really about harnessing the power of all of these technologies that are around to really improve the business, improve the performance and productivity of the business. And in fact, again, that Towards Maturity report tells us that even though 80% of us cite digital transformation as a key concern for our business, only apparently 35% of us are actually got clearly defined strategies to achieve that digital transformation. So what's going on? Well, for me, the digital solutions certainly have enabled the delivery of our learning and performance solutions, and certainly has solved lots of our challenges. But for me, it's really brought in new challenges and new things that need to be addressed. It's brought in the notion that we need new design and delivery and development methods of our content. Would you find that? Do you think that? I mean, in the olden days, we were talking about ADDIE and the waterfall design method, you know, sort of hierarchical, sequential. Now, with the power of technology, we're talking about successive approximation methods, the SAM method, design thinking, prototyping. So really, going digital has necessitated the introduction of new design and development methods. It's also necessitated for us implementation methods, thinking about the technology and the deployment strategies, new things to think about. We've also got an issue with the adoption of technology. So we buy a piece of technology, we use it in-house to deliver our learning solutions, but we need adoption both from our authoring teams, but also our end consumers who are rolling out our content for. And of course, our digital technologies keep changing. Every so often we've got a new release, or perhaps a competing piece of software that does something quite similar, and we're stuck in a quandary. Should I stay with what I got? Should I go for the new one? What do I really need? And of course, to really ultimately prove the value of that technology to the business, we need to stick with it long enough so the business can see its payback. So can I ask, who of you have implemented perhaps a shiny new piece of lovely technology, but perhaps within the course of a year, it's stopped being used? Can you raise your red cards if you've had that experience, your shiny new technology is no longer being adopted? Or raise your green cards if within a year everyone's still keeping with that technology? Where do you sit on that scale? Okay, so a little bit of a mix there. Okay, so adoption is a key concern. So for me, those challenges are what digital brings us. And really, a successful solution for me is about not only choosing the right tools, but selecting the right tactics for those tools as well. So it's about the tools and the tactics. Now, in my company, we were suddenly faced with an opportunity to develop a learning and performance solution for a CRM implementation that we had come upon us last year. And this particular implementation was a very short timescale, 7 weeks, dispersed audience over 10 countries, mixed generation audience, and it was driven from the top. Our key stakeholders were the chairman and the CEOs who really wanted to see the success of this particular system and the training solution to achieve that goal. So this particular project gave us and my team a real opportunity to design a learning and performance solution using digital technology and really deploying clever tactics to ensure its success. 70-20-10.
So you're probably all familiar with this model. Can I have a show of hands if you're familiar with this model? Brilliant, okay. So you're all aware that it was a study that was conducted back in the 80s that just tried to assess where our learning comes from. And what it tells us, and that the numbers aren't so important here, but that we only get a small proportion of our learning from formal learning events. In fact, the majority of our learning comes from on-the-job experience, our day-to-day execution of our tasks. And not only that, but the interaction, the networking, the observing, the feedback, the collaboration that we have in the social area. So 70-20-10 was a model that we chose to adopt. Can I ask you for a show of hands again? So who is actually adopting and implementing all elements of the 70-20-10 sort of framework in their solutions? Okay, a few of us. And a show of hands if you're not implementing it at all, trying bits of it, but perhaps not quite sure what to do, perhaps don't have the technology to do it. Okay. So for us, 70-20-10 was the model that we chose. And why? Because it tells us that learning is continuous. It happens all the time and everywhere. And we need to nourish that learning opportunity that happens everywhere. So what did we do for our digital solutions? This was a key tactic for us. First of all, we chose the right tools, we think, for that training solution. And let's look at what they were. So for the 70, what we actually did was we used one of our in-house products, the Assist in Application Support product, to deliver embedded performance support directly in the application, in the CRM application. And that was going to guide the users as they're working every day on the job. We also used another piece of technology, the train technology there, to develop learning objects that users could draw down as they were working in the workplace. If they had a moment to learn, they could draw down these learning objects and actually focus on some learning. For our 20%, what we used was the Salesforce chatter. Who's got Salesforce in-house here? Anyone? Okay, just a couple. So chatter is like the social networking side of Salesforce, and it allows people to post comments, ask questions, post ideas, tips, and really to enable that collaboration, that dialogue, that knowledge sharing. So we could have used other tools. In fact, one of our technologies has a collaboration element, but really very much we wanted to use the right tool for the right purpose and not overburden with too many tools. For the 10%, what we did, we'd long been established actually for a few years on virtual instructor-led training delivery. So we had a methodology. All of our training is virtually instructor-led at the moment. So we definitely wanted to use that, and we used our WebEx training product to deliver that. And we also used another one of our tools, the Collaborate element, which also has a mobile application component so that our remote Salesforce users, our remote sales guys on the road could access learning content on their mobile apps on the go. So this was the technology that we used, and we used it within the 70-20-10 model. Another tactic that we deployed was designing for the moment of need. So when we go live with a system implementation or any part of learning, typically we put people through a 10% of learning. Well, what happens when the system goes live? You see that scale drop off. Ebbinghouse's forgetting curve comes in, and we're told 24 hours after the training, we've forgotten what we learned, just at the moment when we really want to apply it. So that's what's happening after go live of a system. Really what we want to do is apply that learning, and not only apply it, but we need to be getting the business benefits and continuously improving the value that we get from that system. Moments of need. You may be familiar with Dr. Conrad Gottfredson's Moments of Need methodology that tells us about these 5 moments of need. So when we deliver learning, formal learning, we're actually attributing the need to learn something for the first time or to learn it more in depth. But really, those moments of need continue. So after training, we need to learn how we want to apply that learning. We may have more needs for learning. I need to learn something new today, something I hadn't covered, or a bit more detail. But what's more, I need to be able to respond to change and solve problems. So for us, our tactic in this methodology was to really focus on the 70, really focus on designing for the moment of apply and what happens afterwards. So what that meant for us as a tactic, traditionally we would design our training materials first and think about performance support afterwards. This time we swapped it. We definitely created materials for the 70 that they would use when they were applying. So we designed for the moment of apply. And what's more, we brought that learning, those materials in the 70 into the 10. So let's have a little look at that. So what I'm going to show you here is just a little video of what that technology looks like embedded in application to drive the guidance on the system, but also further learning as the users may need it. And what we're seeing here is a Salesforce system, and I'm in the system, and what I'm getting here is a little note giving me some options of help and guidance I might need. Here I am, I'm picking up a guide, sorry it's a little bit fuzzy. I'm picking up a guide, and this guide actually gives me step-by-step guidance on how to use the task. And you can see I can click on the steps, and it actually points out the fields for me, so there's no danger of going wrong. So there's an example of the guide and notes in the application, providing business context, information, best practices, standards, directly in the user's context in the application. But say the user wants to go up and get other information. So they're going up to the search area here and bringing down some more helpful components. Here we've got another note coming up telling me about the standard for this, the process for that, the order for the other. So I've got all that information bang on my screen for me. And say I've actually got time to learn. I've actually got time to stop and learn. I want to take a little lesson because I've got 5 spare minutes to do that. So what we're seeing here, I've just drawn down a simulation lesson. And obviously these come in different modes of demonstration and practice modes. And I can have a little learning session, a little formal event of my own, if you like, just to cover how I should complete this task. And what we're seeing here is that everything I'm doing, obviously, is tracked. I just took a lesson, and it's being tracked in the back-end platform. So that was a little show of our in-application embedded performance support system. Now, what about the 20? What did we do here? Well, we did establish champions, subject matter experts, who were responsible for driving the change and sharing best practices and just keeping everybody on board with this new system. We also made the Salesforce implementation a key subject at all our weekly sales meetings. Again, enabling that collaboration, that dialogue, discussions about issues that we're having, troubleshooting, best practices. And as I said earlier, we used the Salesforce chatter system, the social networking side, to really allow people to post queries, to push out tips, best practices, and keep that dialogue and that 20% knowledge exchange going. So that's what we did for our 20%. What about the 10%? The 10%, the VILT and mobile. What you're seeing here is an example of what we called our virtual instructor-led training orientation session. So we had a specific orientation session before we let our end users loose on the training, if you like. And you can see the style of the slides very different here to what we might traditionally have done. Really purposed for the virtual arena. And in our virtual instructor-led orientation, the point of separating that out from the core training was so that we could introduce the technology to them and handle that change appropriately. So in our virtual training sessions, we used WebEx training labs where everybody's got their own computer, remote computer, so we can see what they're doing and practice all the activities. So we need to introduce that to them. And that was one of our key tactics. Another thing we did in our orientation sessions was, as I say, we introduced the technology that would be at play, and we asked them to install their mobile apps where they could receive this learning content on the go, additional learning content to the content that we might be training them on in the 10%. And that was another tactic for us. And now what we're seeing is the course itself. And the course itself only had this many slides. So gone are the days where we would have created really long-winded course materials. Really, it went virtual. What you're seeing here is just some introductory slides for the virtual session. And why was it so short? Why didn't we have so many slides? Well, fundamentally, one of the key tactics here was we really used the 10% for the most critical skills. So we're all in danger of, like, when we design a course, oh, I think they need to know this, they definitely need to know that, oh, they should know that if they're going to know this, and before you know it, you've got a 3-day course, right? So for us, it was the skills that would have the most impact to the organization if they got it wrong. So that allowed us to keep a really short course. And more than that, another tactic we did, remember we designed for the moment of apply, so we designed our performance support materials first, and basically we used those in the training. So obviously that was quite a method to ensure that our end users knew how to use this performance support solution. And as we created all of this content already, we just used that to train from, because already that captured all our best practices, all our processes, etc., etc. So I didn't need to create anything different. So that was another tactic for us. And what that allowed us to do, you can see here our implementation plan. Within 7 weeks, we were able to design and build the learning materials, the VILT, the performance support materials, and the learning objects when they want to pull down extra learning on the job. All of that, plus a kind of change awareness and preparedness program. We managed to pull all of that off in 7 weeks. Can I have a show of hands here? Who's had very short notice to deliver their training projects? Anyone else typically get very, very short notice to deliver a really good training project? Can I have a show of hands? Quite a lot of us have been in this boat, I understand. So for us, we managed to pull it off in 7 weeks. And then, after go live, we actually went into business as usual, where people are in the system, using their performance support, drawing down extra learning if they need it. But then what happened? September, things changed. We decided to reconfigure the system, improve our process, because obviously we're in a state of continuous improvement, right? So who else has had that situation? Perhaps within 6 months of a go live, things have changed. Can you raise your hands for me if things have changed within 6 months? Okay, a few of you. So what happened to us? So it changed for us, and what did we do? Again, with our digital solution that we deployed, we were able, because what's happening is our end users are getting into bad practices as well, perhaps, not entering the right data, making common mistakes. We've got changes in the way we want the system to be configured. So all of that needs to be communicated to our users. So rather than push them through some training event again, we really used our performance support solution to do that. And so I'd like to show you now just another little video of how that would work. So perhaps some people are using incorrect data or making common mistakes. With the technology, what we could do is set up a target group, identify who's making those mistakes. We could create these so-called little notes with a message that says, hey, can you check your data? I don't think that's quite right. So this is how we would create a little note. We publish it. We push it out to the target group that we've identified. That's what it looks like in its authoring view. Pushing it out to the target group here. And now in the live application, the end user gets that data alert. Hey, Catherine, you might want to double check your data here. And then we've got another example here of process changes. We've redefined our process. The user comes in, they get a message saying, we've changed such and such, please be aware. And in fact, it's checking here on Catherine's data and recognizing that she's not performed something correctly with a new process. And what about my learning content, my learning objects that also need to change because of my system change? Well, I don't need to capture the whole sequence again in the application. With the technology that we've got here, we can actually dive into the simulation and edit the components like you see here. So that's a little view of how we handled the continuous improvement and pushing out and increasing performance post-go live. Really, the analytics is key, and that's another thing that going digital really gives for us. So the technology that we use, it's called Vimago, and it allows us to extract data and reports to tell us where people are having trouble, what they're stuck on, so we can plan and organize the next sort of performance support intervention. And on the Salesforce side, the Salesforce analytics also give us the data of who's logging on, what they're creating to help drive the performance improvement. And if I refer back towards the Towards Maturity report, this is the benchmarks of where learning and development departments need to be and the value that they can demonstrate and speak to their business stakeholders. So for us, in our implementation, I was able to say to our stakeholders that yes, we reduced costs, we sped up the rollout of new IT applications, we reduced learning delivery time, speed to competency, employee satisfaction. So all round, I think our stakeholders were really happy in that we delivered some of those results and used some of our internal technology with some clever tactics to get the results that we were looking for. So just to conclude, we adopted the 70-20-10 model, not worrying so much about the figures, but really the key learnings were design for the moment of apply, look to the 70, design the content for that. We actually brought it into the 10%. We trained from the 70 in the 10%. And we really focused on just the most critical skills to shorten our training delivery time that was needed. And obviously we enabled the dialogue and the knowledge share through the social networking chatter platform. So just to conclude, we'll be given a template here, a framework, a model of how to do things, some ideas and suggestions for tactics. But really the key learning for me is you can be given the shoes, but you've really got to do your own walking. So try and see. You're going to make errors. We've made loads of errors, but that's the beauty of the learning process. So that really concludes our presentation on digital solutions for 70-20-10. Thank you so much.